relatively sizable one, so we're very happy because we can basically deliver these visits for, well, to us they cost us $500 per child per year. We figured that when we go to scale, because our big thing is the supervision costs, but because this was done within the study, each supervisor supervises 8 towns, and in each town we only have 3 mother leaders. This is because we didn't have money to do more. But when you go to scale, probably each supervisor can do 10 per town. Still do 8 towns, but 10 per town. So you can reduce this cost. So we think that you can do it with $300-400 per child per year. And at that point it becomes affordable, at least by the Colombian government. And so we will have meetings over the next couple of weeks trying to convince them that that might be a good idea for them to do. And we'll see if we succeed. So as you can say, this is really exciting stuff, at least exciting to me. Then the next step is that we've been collecting lots and lots and lots of data. We collected the baseline survey before we started, so all the 1,400 children, and then at the end of it, again, both on the cognitive development, but on lots of other stuff. And the reason for that is because what we want to do is not just to measure the impact that this intervention has or doesn't have, but also understand how it works. So what I'm sure that it's not that particular hour that this child spends with the visitor that makes a difference, if we do make a difference. But I think it's probably the way we change the attitudes of the mothers. For instance, an interesting other result that we're getting is that expenditure on toys and children-related materials is increasing as a consequence of our intervention. So I think they're getting it. They're getting the idea that the children needs to be stimulated. And that's really, so the research agenda over the next few years is going to be look at this data and try to see if we understand how to, how we get these impacts. And then the other thing that we want to do is that, okay, we leave these children at age 3. At that point, probably we want to do something else with them. Probably not in the homes, but in nurseries and stuff. And so we have been talking to education specialists about what kind of interventions can be done in a cheap way at that level. So as you can see, economics, you can do lots of stuff, lots of very different stuff, and can be really exciting. Can be also very frustrating. You know, for many years in my life, in my work life, I basically wrote scientific papers and taught courses. And I still have fun in both activities. Over the last 10 years, I've been doing this stuff, and for the first time, I got into be in close contact with policymakers and occasionally politicians. And that can be exhilarating because sometimes you think you can have an impact on stuff that really matters. Can also be extremely frustrating because sometimes you see horrible things. I mean, things that you see programs that you know they work because you've shown it they work, and they're closed down for purely political reasons. Or vice versa, which is much more common. You see programs that cost lots of money and they have no impact whatsoever, and so this money is basically wasted, and they continue them just for political expediency. So, you know, it's not all rosy. It can be really frustrating at times, but there can be lots of fun.
Thank you. I just have one question. Does anyone else have any questions? So just do one final. Okay, you go first.
What would you say is the main reason why children in developing countries are underperforming? Would you say that it's because typically they have higher birth rates and parents tend to have to look after more children? Or because I remember reading once that firstborn child tend to have higher IQ in general than secondborn or thirdborn, generally because the parents spend more time. Just wondering what you thought.
There is a long. Okay, so you said lots of different things. On the there is a long debate and lots of studies about this quality versus quantity trade-off in fertility choices, especially in developing countries. And there has been, in lots of countries, we observe a big reduction in fertilities. And so there is the idea that people go for less children but higher quality. So you're right. If you have fewer children, if you need arms for the fields, probably you go for quantity. And if there is high mortality, you go for quantity, so you have lots of children. And at that point, you don't have much resources in terms of care about equality. As development grows, there seems to be a tendency to go towards quality rather than quantity, so have fewer children and invest more into them. So that's one theory, and that's something. There are lots of studies on that. On the evidence on whether there are effects of order, there seem to be some. They're not super strong, and people don't fully understand why firstborn are clever or less clever or whatever.
My final question was to do with developed, and you focus a lot on developing countries. So I wonder what the impact of your study is for developed countries like the UK, because you looked at how you can close the gap between a poor country and a rich country. But what about in a rich country where you have deprived areas and kids?
The studies on the peri is in the US, and there are important impacts there. And I think there is work to be done here. There are some interventions that have been studied, Sure Start in this country as well. Sure Start didn't seem to have a big impact. It was a little bit of a disappointment. And I haven't worked on Sure Start, and I know people who have, and they've talked to me. And people have theories of why that's the case. As I said, we are starting to talk to a few people to try to do something for really early ages in Oxfordshire. We'll see whether we convince them to do it. But yeah, there is definitely work to be done in developed countries, for sure.
Anyway, thank you very much for coming.